Us ready at hand?
Okay, we're recording.
Welcome to virtual Vespers at the UU Fellowship of Pottstown. I'm the Reverend Carrie Muller, here tonight with the Reverend Dave Hunter, my husband, co-minister, and pianist. The opening words I wrote this week. Bring your cracked self, flawed and incomplete. Bring your winged self, full of hope and possibilities. Share with the world, give and receive, know love and loss, rejoice in the mystery. The chalice-lighting words are adapted from the late Max Coots. May the mind that sees our faults, the tears that sting our wounds, the laugh that soothes our aches, and the love that redeems us all be illuminated by the light we kindled in this virtual house of faith. Dave will play for us number 92, Mysterious Present Source of All. Well, I wanted to try something a little different tonight, something that may become a model for the future. My collage teacher at Pendle Hill, Melanie Widener, who was also an artist and a spiritual director, used to bring around a little basket to us while we were working and ask if we wanted a blessing. The blessing was just a little slip of paper with a line or three of poetry, and we would draw it at random from the several hundred in the basket. Sometimes they inspired us. Sometimes we put them directly, glued them into our art. Sometimes we tucked them away for another time, and sometimes we decided we need a different one, thank you. But it was amazing how often they were just what we needed for a little lift in addition to the treats that the staff brought us every afternoon. And several years ago, at my request, she sent me the file by email, and she asked me not to share it around, but to just use it for myself, which is fair. But it saved me a lot of hunting and typing, and though I've added some things from time to time and sent her some things as well. So for Vespers, I sat down last week. I now have all those little slips of paper cut out in a bag, and I drew 4 of them at random. And then I put them in what seemed to me to be a reasonable order. I'll read them and respond to them myself, and later I'll give you a chance to respond to them. So the first one I picked up was May Sarton, Now I Become Myself. Now the late May Sarton, you may know, was a UU, and we have some of her words in our hymnal. This line seemed iconically important to me, a basic building block of my theology. The essence of my spiritual understanding has come down over the years to one word, compassion, which I see as a composite requiring both the autonomous self and a generous heart. Ideas that I often have crystallized as integrity and hospitality. Now, this may seem obvious or overly simple, but in my life, it was a long struggle to get there. To become myself has been the work of a lifetime. And May Sarton captures it there in a single line. Although for her, I'm sure it also encapsulates years of love and loss and struggle and creativity. The second one, or at least the one I put in order second, was I want to know presence, staying with what is hard until it softens, staying with what is narrow until it expands. That's by someone called Donna Markov, that I don't know otherwise. This line gives us an idea about what goes into integrity, into becoming ourselves. It's not easy, at least not for most of us. There are 2 related ideas here, presence and persistence. How do we stay with the difficult in our lives until it begins to give way to our hopes and intentions? The walls of a life that is too small begin to crack open and we find space to grow. I took a pre-retirement seminar some years ago with Larry Pierce. He's the person who's now the minister at Thomas Paine down the road. You might say that I failed that class because here I am, these many years later, at least partially unretired. But the whole seminar was worth the price of admission to me because of the main takeaway learning that he gave us. Whatever you want to do in retirement, he said, begin doing it now. I had already begun dabbling in art, but this was encouragement to continue. And it has been especially valuable for me, of course, in the lockdown of pandemic. I had long thought that when I couldn't do clay at the art center anymore, I would switch to paper arts at home. And that is what I have been doing. Present to my home, present to an art form that intrigues and challenges me. But there's another way of understanding presence, although the poet does not capitalize the word. What might a spiritual presence be? How do we want to approach and interact with it? Is that presence a spiritual entity that we could wrestle with by prayer or devoted action in the world? Might it be nature, experienced by walking in the park, or might it yield to heart, intellectual, scientific study? Are we drawn to the presence of humanity in the form of justice, equity, and compassion? Any of these could deepen our lives if we had the persistence to stay with them as the hard begins to soften and the narrow to expand. Dave will play The Lone Wild Bird. I chose that one because of the bird imagery and the line about flying, because the next little snippet is, for a long time, she flew only when she thought no one else was watching. That's Brian Andreas. That's a line I've seen on little framed pictures that you can sometimes buy in touristy towns. How do we learn to become ourselves like flying? When do we begin, and how much do we let others see what we're up to? My art life has been of necessity shared with my classmates because it has taken place almost entirely in classes at the Art Center and at Pendle Hill, the Quaker Center. Once in a while, it reaches the level of flying. Once in a while, I let others see it, a pottery-based sermon or a photo on Facebook. Just recently, I was invited and I joined the Facebook group called Collage Artists of America, where I am clearly outclassed as an artist. And yet, I posted pictures of a little book that I made, the first thing I have done without a teacher or a class to guide me. Perhaps I am moving past that long time and beginning to fly, even when I know others are looking. And the fourth line turned out to be another piece by Brian Andreas. And he says, and if we are lucky enough to lose, our lives become beautiful with mystery again. Well, either I or autocorrect misread this one, and as I typed it in, it turned into, if we are lucky enough to love. Well, that seems straightforward enough. Loving another person opens us up to a whole new mystery, and the lovers can go forward towards a beauty they create with and for each other. But no, what he wrote was, lucky enough to lose. This little line doesn't give context to say what and how we might lose. If our initial goal was inappropriate or insufficient, then losing indeed would help us to find our way to something better. But is there something more profound and challenging here? Does losing give us the opportunity to have our hearts broken open, as Parker Palmer says, to expand our world and reach out in empathy to others beyond our original narrow circle of care and concern? Does losing help us to develop our empathy and open us to the beauty and mystery of people and communities and ideas we might not have noticed if we had just marched on to winning without interruptions or setbacks? Have the anxieties and losses of COVID opened us to mysteries that we were too busy to see and too distracted to pursue? Can these bits of poetry together help us to become ourselves, to bless the world, to embrace the beauty of mystery? May it be so. And now number 83, Winds Be Still, another flying reference. Thank you, Dave. Will you join with me in a spirit of prayer? Spirit of life, fathomless mystery, source of all, we're here. Each of us here in a different location, yet all present to you and ourselves and each other. We're grateful for the abundance of our lives and our relationships, even for the challenges that push us to greater becoming. We're regretful of the opportunities missed, the mistakes we've made, the losses we have brought about, and yet we are hopeful that we can become our best selves and live so that others can do so as well. Be with us as we discern that path, reach out beyond our immediate circle, and truly bless the world. Amen, shalom, salam, and blessed be. Well, your turn. How do you respond to these lovely lines? What catches your attention? What challenges you? Would you like me to repeat them?
Yes.
Okay. May Sarton, now I become myself. And Donna Markova, I want to know presence, staying with what is hard until it softens, staying with what is narrow until it expands. Brian Andreas, for a long time she flew only when she thought no one was watching. And again, Brian Andreas, and if we are lucky enough to lose, our lives become beautiful with mystery again. What's there for you?
I like the idea of staying with something even while it's hard. And I guess it's sort of, to me, life, which I don't seem to have gotten right yet. But so I'll hang in, do what I can.
When you were young, did you think that adults had everything right? Understood it all?
Sure, sure.
And do they? Do we?
No, right.
I think you're on mute, Alan. I'd like to hear what you're saying.
Somebody else want to go, or? All right, I'll go. I also was most attracted to staying with something hard. I have this view of the world where I want to know I want to get as close as I can to what is right, what is true, what is empirically true about the world. And even if it's uncomfortable and hard and difficult, I want to come to grips with it because I think that it enriches my life. And also, if I perceive something hard that's difficult for me to accept, but I think it's true, then my job is to come to accept it and love it for what it is.
Certainly dealing straightforwardly with truth is something this nation is having a little difficulty with right now.
Yeah, I mean, from regarding what you just said, I am just reading a book that's called Me and White Supremacy, and it's a workbook basically, and every day it's a 28-day workbook, and every day it asks questions about how I like how do I have privilege because I'm white, and sometimes it's simple things to me, but I haven't thought about it because it's just like my everyday life. And then it's like, well, but is that really a thing? But then if you're looking at it, it's like, yeah, you know, for me it's everything is so easy, but for other people of a different skin color it's not, and it's kind of hard to accept that at first, but if you work through it, it gets easier. It's like, yeah, you just have to face we just have to face the reality at this point and try to make it better. So
Things that should be the default for everybody are not.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and it took me a while to like open my eyes to it. Like I've never really realized it until like recently. So
Well, I like the little meme that I've seen that says, just because you're white doesn't mean your life isn't hard, but it means that it's not hard because of your skin color.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, everybody is facing hardships in their life, but for white people, at least skin color isn't making it harder.
Right.
I'll say one other thing about the last line about losing. I know losing enriches you in some way and opens you up, but sometime around 20 years ago, I decided I had lost enough, and that I was, they say that hardship brings character. I felt I had enough character, and I would just as soon do with a little less and have a little less losing. I've lost a lot in life. I mean, not intensely, but in my own mind. My hardships were self-inflicted. I just want to admit that. But I decided that I had enough character and enough losing, and now I just wanted to float a little bit, which is a little bit counter to what I said before, but somehow it mixes in.
Well, I think our lives are pretty much a jumble of things, so I'm not sure we have to be completely consistent in our preferences moment to moment. But I think there's comfort in seeing that losing at one thing gives you an opportunity to do something else. And every Picasso said that every act of creation is also an act of destruction. If you have a pristine canvas and you make a mark on it, that pristine quality is gone, but your creativity now has a chance.
I learned something today
Maybe you're not coming
that
through.
shocked me. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Better.
I learned something today that shocked me. So I had two very good African American friends, and as people here know, one of them passed away in June, and I was very, very sad about that. And then my other close African American friend was my best friend in high school. Maddie, I'm on a church call. Can you please go into the other room? Maddie, I'm sharing something private. Can you please go into the other room? Take Sam with you. Okay, I guess I'm going back into the bathroom. Excuse me. Maddie, Daddy's supposed to keep you guys on the back porch. Okay. I'll
Parenting is hard, black or white.
Oh, she's fast. Maddie Bug. Come on. No, honey. I want to be with you too. I'll see you in 3 minutes. I love you. I love you. No, I'll be 3 minutes, please. Okay. Thank you. I'm so sorry.
It's all right.
Oh, geez, Louise. So, he said, so I had been thinking, okay, I have one Black African American left who's a really good friend. And so there's just not a lot of Black people around here where we live. I mean, I have somewhat friends, but she's like one of my best friends. And I always admired her because she's always been able to function in both worlds. Like she has like a lot of white people around her. She went to a white school growing up and she just seemed fine and had lots of Black friends too. Works for the World Bank, travels all over the world. Well, she told me today, she said that she just isn't friends with any white people anymore except for me. She said, "You're all I have left as far as friends with white people because I just can't do it anymore." She said, "Even the people at church who are so nice, I just can't do it. It's just all superficial." And she said, except for people in Europe, like she has friends throughout the world because she's traveled. But she said in the United States, she has no other white friends, but yet she's surrounded by white people. So this person that I really admired for her being able to live in both worlds and have friends of every race and color, I just heard something from her today that just made me really sad. And I don't know. Usually I try not to share sad things because I try to be a positive person, but it just kind of shocked me so much and I'm still kind of in that place where I haven't gotten to the next step.
Well, those hard things are part of our life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I heard a new phrase recently called toxic positivity. When somebody is having a real problem, they may be dying or dealing with something very profound. If you just say, there, you'll be fine, that pushes them away. That doesn't give them the opportunity to open. So if you can actually be with somebody without dumping positivity on them and just let them be with what they need to be with, that's a big help to people. It's not easy though. It looks like nothing, but it's not easy.
But sometimes you feel like you have to say something when somebody tells you something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You feel like you have to say something and you want to say something positive.
Well, you want to fix it. You want to
Yeah.
make it better.
Yeah.
Right, and mostly you can't fix it. I mean, some things you can fix easily, but most things you can't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you can offer your presence, you're witnessing, you're holding some of their pain. And that is very powerful for people. It isn't easy, and it doesn't look heroic, but it's important.
And I mean, at least you're that one person who doesn't seem to be superficial to her, who's like like you're a real friend to her, instead of like other people pretending to be friends or to be an ally, and she's just feeling that that's not the case. It's like you can't change those other people, but you can be the best you can be, you know.
Well, I think those other people might not be doing anything wrong. I think it's more about where she is right now.
Well, and you have created a relationship of trust, and we can remember that truth and trust come from the same root. And that relationship of trust is a very valuable thing, however we create them in our lives.
Thank you.
When we moved here to Whitehorse Village, I didn't realize this, but somewhere along the line, I learned that one of my fellow residents is the father of one of my colleagues. So I've got a benediction here from Sam Trumbore, and after that, Dave will play From You I Receive. Sam says, "Go forth in simplicity, find and walk the path that leads to compassion and wisdom, that leads to happiness, peace, and ease. Welcome the stranger and open your heart to a world in need of healing. Be courageous before the forces of hate. Hold and embody a vision of the common good that serves the needs of all people." Amen.
Carrie,
Yes?
can I ask you to repeat that line or that thing you saw about being Black doesn't make things, how did it go? Say it
Okay,
again.
I'm not sure I've got the words exactly right. I've just seen it on Facebook from time to time. It says, if you're white, it doesn't mean that you don't have problems. It just means that those problems aren't coming from your skin color.
Okay, okay.
Justine, you may have a more recent or better version of that. Justine, you're muted, so we're not hearing you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think it sums it up. There are like different wording sometimes, but it's basically just saying, just because you're white doesn't mean you have an easy life, but skin color doesn't make your life hard.
I mean, there's lots of kinds of oppression. Some of it's big and societal, and some is personal. Growing up in an alcoholic family can be very oppressive and cause all sorts of troubles. But that's not, it's just that being the object of racism is something that happens all day, every day, and is hard to deal with. And eventually, as Ruby found out, people get fed up. It's hard.
I didn't, of course I knew this, but I didn't appreciate it enough that when somebody says something to you that seems abrasive or negative and you're Black, you have to make a decision or think, is that because I'm Black, or is that just, they just said that to me? They might have said that to anybody. And
Right.
that adds an extra layer of work, a mental
That's right.
work that is
Hard
required.
emotional work.
And I'm a
And you
person
don't have
who
a
doesn't like
control
to
group.
work very hard.
I mean, when I'm in the supermarket, which I haven't been in months, but when I'm in the supermarket, if I do something careless and bump into somebody, they don't know that I'm an equal opportunity klutz.
Right.
So depending on how they receive, they could receive that as racism because I'm just out of it.
Right. And
Somebody followed me around and saw that she bumps into 6 Black people for every 2 white people she bumps into, then they might have a case.
right.
But it doesn't matter whether it's a scientific understanding or not. That's their experience.
Right, and it's an element that makes it harder for African Americans than white people. It's an extra thing that you have to think about. I drift through the world, just drift through the world, not thinking about a lot of things, but not something like that.
But you don't have to be thinking about whether that white person over there is going to give you a hard time this minute, or whether that policeman is a threat to you.
Did you
So
hear
there's
that
that.
loud boom?
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, but here was a loud, very loud boom outside of my house, and I was just wondering.
Is
who
that
was.
thunder or something else?
No, that was something else. I just don't know what it was. And I sent a picture of the phrase that you said in
Oh, good.
group chat.
We see it in the chat. You know where the chat is, folks?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a chat button in the middle of the toolbar on the bottom of the screen.
I haven't figured out how to open it though, especially not with my
Thank you.
glasses not on.
When you're done talking.
And it can be a challenge to click on.
It was in the bottom right corner of my screen. Maybe that's just how my settings were set up.
Oh, it says download. That's what you do. Hi, Maddie. Do you have a dragon with you tonight?
No.
She's my technical helper here. She
I
just,
put my dragon away.
oh,
He was right there on the, I moved him away. Actually, it's not he, it's Maggie. I once had a therapist named Maggie, so I decided that naming my protective dragon Maggie was a good idea. Hi, how are you?
Isn't she?
Some years ago, Dave and I were the ministers of the week at UMAC, which is a UU summer camp for families. And we had two dragons that would talk to each other as part of our daily chapel service. And one of them we put in the auction at the end. And some kid persuaded her mother to spend $60 for a $10 stuffed animal.
Oh,
Wow.
And then there was
hopefully,
another kid who was devastated that she didn't get it. And I told
Oh.
her mother that you could get it at Barnes and Noble.
hopefully the money went to a good cause.
Oh, it was the UMAC Scholarship Fund, which was a great event. If they ever have that again, it's a great family vacation. That's a whole lot cheaper than Disneyland. It's on a college campus in Allentown, and they have a great time because there are workshops for the grown-ups and different workshops for the kids. So you're not with your kids all day long, and the kids aren't stuck with their parents all day long, but they come together for meals and in the evening. And then in the late night, the adults, the parents take turns being the hall monitor so that the other parents can go and enjoy the evening activities. So it's something to keep an eye out for. UMAC and what's the name of the college? It's in Allentown.
Catholic school. But I don't think it's happening this year.
No, it's virtual this year. They're doing something, but not on campus.
And what is the program called?
Well, the program changes from year to year.
UU Mid-Atlantic Community known as UMAC.
UUMAC. And there's maybe 150, well, I don't know, we haven't been there in some time, but there were about 150 people there. And so you sort of get to know everybody. It's not like General Assembly where there are thousands of people and no structure. This is a much smaller community.
But it sounds like people are coming from farther than we are to Allentown, so we're still pretty fortunate that
It's
it's
the
so
Joseph
close.
Priestley district, so people came from the Washington metropolitan area and further north.
Okay.
And a lot of people did it every year. And sometimes like grandparents would take their grandchildren. And it was, I should say, we haven't been there in some years, so I can't say what it's like now, but there's a theme talk every day and then different workshops. Some of them are art, some of them are field trips, some of them are sports, all sorts of things all day long. And then a special program for the kids.
And worship.
That's nice.
It's nice that they have something for grandparents and their kids to do.
Yes.
That's a nice thing.
And structured enough that it's, it's not burdensome to be doing that all day.
We took Janae to a Rhodes Scholar program like that.
Mhm.
Rhodes Scholar used to be Elder Hostel,
Right.
right?
And my dad used to
So-
do that quite a bit.
Was wonderful. We're so glad we did it. And it was a scuba diving trip.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
I couldn't scuba dive, but Gary and Janae went ahead.
Mhm.
And then there were other kids her age and also other grandparents. So it was really great. It's wonderful, wonderful.
Well, maybe someday we'll be able to do those things again.
So it sounds like Governor Wolf is still talking about having schools open in the fall. My friend said in DC, she just found out yesterday that her schools are closed in the fall.
We're starting to hear about school closings. Westchester, I think,
Westchester.
So,
Well, that's
all
colleges.
virtual, yeah.
Yeah.
all
Westchester
virtual.
and East Stroudsburg, and
Mhm.
is all online. And yeah, so they're starting to.
One by one, they'll shut down.
Yeah, eventually it's gonna be like in March in the city, everybody was just waiting for all the schools to close down. It was just like a race, who's gonna go first, who's gonna go last. And
well, colleges are one thing, but elementary school is really something else. Like, I think the online learning is really, really hard for kids.
Mhm.
Kathy
Yeah.
had made the mistake of signing up for off-campus housing. And even if campus shuts down, she doesn't have any chance of getting out of her lease.
Oh, no.
So
Oh.
that's going to be an expense, even if schools shut down.
And Gary and I have decided that the chances are, well, we don't know. Chances are that O&J will open. And we aren't positive that this cabin is really going to make it be sufficient for us during the winter.
Yeah.
So we're going to need to move home. So we made a decision that we were asking the kids to find a place, to find an apartment, and we'll help them with the rent. So they can stay in O&J, and but Gary and I won't have to worry every day about, it's bad enough with Ben and Karam and their jobs, but also then school, and it just makes it untenable for us.
Yeah.
So we feel badly, but I don't want to risk being here in dangerous situation. If one of us was hurt or sick or something, we'd be far away from medical and maybe couldn't get up the hill because we're on the side of a mountain.
Yeah.
So
These are real issues.
yes, they are.
Yeah.
And see how privileged we are that we have that choice to make.
Mhm.
You're not There's a lot
stuck
of
in an
people don't.
unair-conditioned apartment in the city with 4 generations trying to figure out how to deal with 3 bedrooms,
Yes.
Right.
We're very lucky to be here in a retirement community.
Mhm.
where somebody else deals with all of the structural issues.
Mm.
Is it time now to say good night?
Maybe so.
I think so.
Well, it was good to see you all. I wish you well. We're not clear on the future schedule for Vespers and Sundays,
Well, next Wednesday, it's my turn, so we'll be here.
but
Okay.
if I get another turn, I'm going to do the same sort of thing, but I'm going to do it more spontaneously and ask you to respond immediately rather than giving you my views first.
Sounds good.
Okay, thanks for this session. It was very nice. Very.
Always good
Thank
to
you.
see
It
you.
is.